Good evening, everyone. Let me pull the mic down. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the pre-council meeting for the city of Joliet, April 17th, 2023. Mayor Bob Odekirk is presiding. Krista, may we have the roll call, please?
We begin with roll call. Mayor Odekirk.
Here.
Councilman Clement.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Guerrero.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Here.
First on the agenda this evening is a presentation, overview of final water supply agreement with the city of Chicago.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This evening, very excited to be here for what's the culmination of really 4 years of work that a lot of you and everyone in our staff has been involved with. So I'll jump right in. Just as a reminder, why is the city seeking an alternative water source? It's because our existing water source, which is the deep aquifer, is being depleted to the point that it won't be able to meet our maximum day demands. And through groundwater modeling, we know that that will occur as soon as 2030. We did an intensive study. We started with evaluating all possible alternatives of water sources, groundwater sources, river sources, like Michigan sources, evaluated all of those, and then narrowed down and further evaluated 5. Then in 2020, we presented that information to the council, and it was decided to further evaluate 2 Lake Michigan alternatives. In 2021, the council did select purchasing treated water from the city of Chicago. The city isn't doing this project on its own. We are in the process of forming a regional water commission that consists of 6 communities: Joliett, Romeoville, Crest Hill, Shorewood, Minooka, and Shanahan. We've all approved a preliminary agreement to form a water commission that was approved in February 2022. This is an extensive project, and a lot of work has already been done. It consists of 7 capital improvement projects, 65 miles of transmission main from Chicago all the way out to Shanahan. There's multiple pumping stations, water storage facilities, and vast improvements through each of the communities in order to make this project a reality. As I said, a lot of the work has already been done. At the end of this year, we'll have many projects that are at the 90% engineering design phase, and we will proceed with construction, start of construction as soon as fall of 2024. So we are well on our way of meeting that goal of having this project online and ready to provide Lake Michigan water to this region by 2030. So tonight, I'm going to specifically focus on the final water supply agreement with the city of Chicago, which is an integral part of the overall program. We negotiated and the city council approved in January 2021 a preliminary agreement with key terms related to what would be the final water supply agreement. And this agreement reflected a new approach that Chicago is taking in regards to its wholesale water customers regarding a cost of service rate methodology, as well as a formation of an advisory council to allow for transparency and collaboration with the city. So since that February 2021, we have spent the last 2 years proceeding with negotiations with Chicago for a final water supply agreement. And many people have been involved in those negotiations. Myself, Special Legal Counsel Barb Adams, our program manager from Crawford, Murphy and Tilley, Teresa O'Grady. Chicago had multiple attorneys, their finance department, as well as their technical department at the Chicago Department of Water Management. We have worked with many other people in preparation of this. We had other technical experts from the program team, procurement experts, rate experts, bond counsel, financial advisors, our underwriter, as well as our corporation counsel were all involved in the review of the document. Major takeaway is that it is consistent with those terms that we agreed to in the preliminary agreement, and in fact has resulted in a water rate that will be less than when the preliminary agreement was approved, and I'll talk about that more later on in the presentation. So again, This is just a major milestone in our progress on the program. Chicago has made a significant change in their approach to their relationships with their wholesale customers. So the overview of the agreement, there's many, again, the key terms that had been in the preliminary agreement are again reflected in this agreement. A coordinated approach to designing, financing, and constructing the new water supply infrastructure. The provision of that water by our targeted water delivery date of January 1 of 2030. The need to use real estate in the vicinity of the Southwest Pumping Station site, and as well as working with the Chicago Park District for using the part of the Durkin Park. There's gonna be a coordinated approach to operation and maintenance of the new water supply infrastructure. Again, water rates based on AWA M1, which is a cost of service methodology, which has many benefits for us that I will speak on more later on in the presentation. That commitment to transparency and collaboration, and assignment to the Regional Water Commission upon formation. So the water supply agreement is made up of multiple, many articles, 29 articles. I'm just going to speak briefly on a few of them this evening. So in Articles 4 and 5, we discuss the agreement term, renewal, and amendments. And some key takeaways is this is a 100-year agreement with automatic renewals. However, Joliet does have the ability to reopen for any terms for any reason after 50 years. So that is it is a very long agreement, but we do have that ability after 50 years to bring certain items back open to discuss. Also has early termination by Joliet. So if we start to proceed down this project and are unable to obtain real estate or sufficient financing, we are able to terminate for those reasons. After 50 years, we also have that ability to early terminate, and Chicago has very limited options for early termination. So again, we found all of these items in this agreement to be favorable for Joliet and the Grand Prairie Water Commission. Articles 8 and 9 go into great detail about the design, construction, and financing of the new water supply infrastructure. We feel that through our ongoing discussions with Chicago, we've come up with a means of working together on this site in order to build the infrastructure that will be needed. And so this portion of the agreement identifies who will be the owner and operator of certain elements and who will be designing and constructing them. And again, it's important that all be coordinated at the beginning so that it can be successfully completed. Real estate is a major component to the project. Again, we're working at the Southwest Pumping Station site located in Chicago. It's next door to a park, Durkin Park. Chicago will be granting easements to Joliet to do work on the Southwest Pumping Station site that's shown in blue. And then we will also be working with the Chicago Park District for easements and temporary easements on the Durkin Park site. So both Chicago and Joliet obtained appraisals for the costs associated with those easements. And when we met to review them, we generally have agreed upon the midpoint between those two appraisals for the cost associated with that. And the total cost would be $2.8 million. Articles 11, 13, and 14 are more technical in nature, dealing with water purchase, storage, and water quality. So very critical that we make sure that we get water quality that is in compliance with all regulatory requirements. And another key component is that we are getting a guaranteed maximum capacity from Chicago. So we have talked with our other commission members, and everyone has provided that upper limit of their build-out water quantity that they would need, and that's 105 MGD total together for the 6 communities. So we have the assurance that as our communities continue to grow, that we will have the water needed to support that. So Chicago has agreed that 105 MGD will be reserved in their system for that need. Article 15 focuses on ownership, maintenance, and operation of the new water supply infrastructure. Again, this is a 100-year agreement, so it's important that we establish those responsibilities of ownership and maintenance. We will be having a shared site at that Southwest Pumping Station site. So we will be developing a shared use and maintenance plan, which will cover issues such as, lawn mowing, lighting, fencing, gates, and all those items. And now getting into water rates. Again, Chicago had previously charged a uniform water rate, and that meant that everyone in the northeastern Illinois who purchased water from Chicago paid the same rate, whether you are a retail customer or a wholesale customer. However, as we presented to Chicago a couple of years ago, it wasn't fair that a Joliet resident, for example, would be paying for a item, it's more of a retail item in nature, such as a water meter replacement, that Joliet would not see any benefit from that work being done in Chicago. So after our discussions during the preliminary agreement negotiations, we had come to the agreement that it would be based on a cost of service methodology. And as part of our ongoing negotiations with them the past 2 years, we did an in-depth review of how those costs were being allocated. And as I mentioned previously, the water rate that was being calculated upon our comments on that cost of service study is 16% less than what was presented when the preliminary agreement was signed. So again, working with Chicago on that collaborative review of their cost of service study has resulted in a even further reduced water rate for Joliet. As I mentioned, again, we'll have that opportunity to complete that open book review of their methodology for calculating the water rate, and we can do that every 5 years. And as was provided in the preliminary agreement, there is an annual rate adjustment that will be capped, and there's 3 ways that rate will be capped. It's either the cost of service rate, the inflation index, which is CPI, or a fixed 5% limit. So as we all discussed when the preliminary agreement was executed, we have the comfort of knowing that we will not have more than 5% water rate increases from the city of Chicago. And as I mentioned, there's lots of items that are, expenses that Chicago has to incur to maintain a retail system, like water meter replacement and distribution main replacement. And those are costs that a Joliet resident should not have to be paying for in their water rate. So the agreement specifically excludes items like replacing lead service lines, installing water meters, replacing distribution water mains, costs related to departments within Chicago that are not used to provide water for Joliet, and also pension funds that were previously existing prior to Joliet taking water will also be excluded from our water rate. As we've been talking about the formation of the Water Commission, Joliet led the way in these negotiations, but it's important that once the Water Commission forms, that this agreement would transfer to the Grand Prairie Water Commission. So as we've been discussing, the Grand Prairie Water Commission will purchase water from Chicago, and then Joliet will purchase water from the Grand Prairie Water Commission, which we will then sell to our residents. Article 24 is a commitment to transparency and collaboration, which is a significant improvement from the prior agreements that Chicago had. So this requires an advisory council that's composed of Chicago, Joliet, and other wholesale purchasers meet as an advisory council quarterly. And so we have been meeting since June of 2022 and have drafted bylaws and are well on our way of accomplishing those goals of providing a meaningful way for customers of Chicago water system to provide feedback and be involved in decisions that are made for the Chicago water system. So that's a quick overview of the water supply agreement and a schedule of the activities associated with its approval. Chicago did introduce it to their council on March 15th. We have been making presentations to our Water Commission members, both at the Technical Advisory Working Group, as well as at the Mayors and Managers Working Group. Chicago did present it to their Finance Committee today, and it was unanimously approved by that committee. This will be on the agenda for approval for the Joliet City Council tomorrow. on the Chicago City Council agenda for approval on Wednesday, and then execution shortly thereafter. So there's many components of this agreement. Like I said, the water supply agreement, as well as many permanent and temporary easement agreements, which are identified on the slide. There's two payments that would be authorized by approval of this ordinance, $979,699 for Chicago, and then $1,862,617 for the Chicago Park District. So no, it was a lot of work that I condensed into a very brief presentation. So if there's any questions, I could answer them at this time.
Questions? Just a comment, thank you. This is, what we all voted on several years ago, and this is consistent with what the council wanted to do. So thank you, staff, and our,
Okay,
for all
thank
the
you.
hard work.
Next is citizens be heard on agenda items. First, Margie Sepon regarding Council Memo 179-23.
Good evening, Margie Sepon, Joliett, Illinois. I am here on the council agenda, the public hearing for the first amendment to the annexation agreement, 620 Sandell, 800 Richard Street. I do understand it was added to the agenda that it would be tabled to be consistent with the memo that Mr. Caparelli included within the agenda packet for the pre-council meeting. The reason I'm here today, this is going to be tabled for a fourth time. It was tabled in October, December, January, and now tomorrow night. This is a lot to put onto residents, a lot. We prepare for each and every one of these hearings. All we want is a fair hearing. That's all we want. And it says here in the memo, the city requests that the public hearing be tabled to the June 6, 2023 City Council meeting to provide more time to review the draft reports of the two companies who are evaluating the quarry site. One company was hired by PT Farrell and one by the city. So since January 17th, there have been 6 city council meetings. That means 6 city manager reports. And in none of those 6 or 5 city manager reports was there any mention that a company has been hired by PT Farrell or VM Land LLC or by the city. If the taxpayers are paying for the company that the city, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well today, that the city hired, just like in court, both sides, there's discovery. We'd like the draft copies. I don't think we should have to FOIA them, and we don't want to wait until 3 days before the June 6th meeting to scramble and try to understand those reports and to look into trying to figure out what questions more we need to ask. So I'm asking if we could have those draft copies so we can take a look at them. And if the reports were ready, it was also agreed to that there would be a larger public community meeting. I believe Councilman Guerrero had brought up perhaps expanding it to 1,000 feet. And there's no mention of that larger community meeting. Councilwoman Quillman, you had asked City Manager Caparelli for a true independent third party. Who are these companies? Who are these companies? And in Robert's Rules of Order, is there anything that addresses the constant tabling of this public hearing? Again, it's a lot for residents to come down. It takes me 40 minutes to get here. And I'm not even talking about travel time, but preparing. So, Robert's Rules of Order, how many more times is this going to be tabled? I didn't have the energy today to look that up. We like draft copies of these evaluation reports. And we just, a community meeting, expanded, and we just want a fair process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Delilah Legret regarding Council Memo 183-23.
Good evening, Delilah Legret, a resident of Jackson Township. I am here to comment on the petition to annex the following properties: 18651 West Manhattan Road and the farmland behind it. I have spoken to some staff since receiving the notice and am reassured that the state statute for annexation alone is being followed. However, the city of Joliet has already passed an ordinance specific to this project and these pins. Maybe staff is unaware, they could only say that the state statute was being followed. I am referring to the amended and restated annexation and development agreement made December 21st, 2021. Specifically, but not exclusively, Section 5 of this agreement, additional parcels. This section requires absolutely any additional parcels to go through initial petitions that include zoning, appropriate notices, and hearing for said zoning. Upon completion of the required hearings, if in agreement with such requests, it then moves to annex such such pins to the city and amend the 2021 agreement to include those additional parcels. This annexation request before you cannot be as it is. I request that a no vote is made tomorrow so that the process already agreed upon by this board that was signed in 2021 can be followed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on an agenda item?
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Murphy. I'm the attorney for the petitioner on 186-23 to 235 Collins. I spoke with staff earlier today. I'm also the village attorney for Olympia Fields, and I have a village board meeting of my own tonight. So staff suggested that I speak briefly on this matter tonight. We've gone through process. The special use is recommended for approval, and I wanted to make sure the council understood that we accept the conditions that are set forth in the proposed special use ordinance, and ready to answer any questions if I may.
Any questions? Thank you. Good luck at your meeting.
We're annexing Olympia Fields Country Club, so wish me a lot of luck.
Beautiful country club.
Good evening, Nathaniel Washburn with KGG LLC. I'm here on behalf of VM Land, the petitioner for 820 Sandal and the Richard Street project. I just wanted to clarify one quick point. The materials for the independent study just came in over the weekend and were just forwarded to the city's expert as of today. The reason for the table is to allow time for the report to be prepared, and I also wanted to reiterate that VM Land has agreed to pay the costs of the city's report, and then they went on and hired their own expert as well. So the city's gonna get 2 reports at no cost to them, and we just ask for the time to be allowed to put those reports together, get them in the hands of the city and their staff, and allow you guys to make a good informed decision come the time. So thank you. We again appreciate a vote to table to the June 6th meeting, and if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Question here.
Yes.
These 2 experts, where are they from?
I don't know where the city's expert's from. I've tried as the attorney for the applicant to sort of stay out of their, I don't want to appear to unduly influence anything of theirs. And my client's expert, I can get an answer for that and bring it to you tomorrow night. I'll be here.
No, I want it tonight. You can't get to me tonight.
I can try.
I mean, you're saying this is for the reason, but you don't know who it is, the expert is.
I didn't hire the expert, Councilwoman Coleman. My client did, and he's been in touch with that individual. I'm happy to try to reach out to him and get you that material. If I can get it before the end of this meeting, I'm happy to come back up and present it.
Or you can email me tomorrow morning as well. But
I can do that as well.
I would prefer tonight if you don't mind.
I will do my best.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gigi J. Beck. I am a resident of Joliet, and I am also the staff of Senator Rachel Ventura. She had sent me a letter, which I would like to read for you folks this evening. My office has made me aware of the annexation of certain parcels at 18651 West Manhattan Road. I am concerned with the process the city is undergoing. The date of the file was created on 4/4/2023. This is the date of the election. Pursuant to 65 ILCS 5/7-1-1, which states, no annexation, disconnection, and annexation or disconnection under this article of territory have electors residing therein made, one, before any primary election to be held within the municipality affected thereby, after the time for filing petitions as a candidate for nomination to any office to be chosen at the primary election, or two, within 60 days before the general election to be held within the municipality shall be effective until the day after that date of the primary general election, as the case may be. In light of this fact, the application is not adhering the state law. I am asking for a no vote. Senator Rachel Ventura. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Boise Walker, and I am a resident of Joliet, Illinois. And I am here also speaking on item 179-23, the public hearing resolution. As in January, there was a comment and there were questions from the community asking for a larger meeting. So I asked, since the reports are now going to be in hand, that community meeting be scheduled for May. That will give you guys a month to review and for us to be able to get that report at least a month before the June meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak on an agenda item? Seeing none, the city manager will review the items for tomorrow's agenda.
Good evening, everyone. Agenda item 16723, it's a position vacancy for a parking enforcement officer. Agenda item 168, 169, and 17023 all deal with the payroll for February through March. Agenda item 171-23, award a contract for the 2023 on-call evacuation and underground utility repair program. Agenda item 172-23, emergency purchase of sodium permangate from Hawkins Water Treatment Group in the amount not to exceed $100,620. Agenda item 173-23, amendment to the service agreement with Flock for additional license plate readers in the amount of $23,600. Agenda item 174-23, CDBG subrecipient agreement with Agape Mission NFP up to $56,000. Agenda item 175-23, CDBG subrecipient agreement with Agape Mission nonprofit up to $36,000. Agenda item 177-23, a public hearing for the resolution approving the annexation agreement for One Industry Avenue. Agenda item 178-23, a public hearing for a resolution approving an annexation agreement of 8.81 acres. This is to be tabled. Agenda item 179-23, public hearing resolution approving the First Amendment to the annexation agreement for 620 Sandoval Place, but this is also to be tabled. On agenda item 181-23, ordinance associated with One Industry Avenue. Agenda item 183-23, ordinance approving the annexation of certain parcels at 18651 West Manhattan Road and parcel south of 18651 West Manhattan Road, connecting the city limits. Agenda item 184-23, ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 16, Section 2-506A3 of the City of Joliet Code and Ordinance amending the duties of the Inspector General. Agenda item 185-23, ordinance associated with the annexation of 8.1 acres located at the frontage road. That's to be tabled. Agenda item 186-23, of ordinance approving a special use permit to allow temporary staffing agency located at 235 Collins Street. Agenda item 187-23, an ordinance approving a preliminary plan unit development of Timber Point Unit 2 subdivision. Agenda item 188-23, an ordinance authorizing an amendment to the annual budget of the City of Joliet for the 2023 fiscal year projects completed. What this is this reflects, I want to make this clear, this is not a new budget amendment. We're not amending this current budget. It reflects the monies that were committed and obligated in last year for items for police cars, sidewalks that we were unable to purchase during that time frame because of shortages in equipment, shortages in product. So we're adding those monies that were not spent last year to this year's budget to reflect that we're going to spend that money this year, even though it was committed last year. Just so people are clear on that. This is a housekeeping manner, so it actually reflects the current expenditures of this year's budget.
And Jim?
Yes, sir.
To be clear, they'll be spent as originally approved.
Correct.
Or originally contracted or bid out.
Right. There's no changes to any of that.
No shell game
Right,
with
exactly.
money.
We just couldn't get the material last year for the sidewalks, so we're going to spend that money this year on the sidewalks in addition to the money we already
But that
have.
includes everything in this particular ordinance. Any
Correct.
expenditures.
So we're not adding any money to the budget. We're just taking the money from last year that we wanted to spend last year, we couldn't, and we're adding it to this
And
year.
we're not rebidding any of it, and we're not
No.
sliding any money from this contract over to this contract?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Agenda item 189-23, ordinance approving a water supply agreement with the City of Chicago and agreements for easements and rights of access with the City of Chicago. Agenda item 190-23, ordinance approving a street name change for the portion of South Chicago Street to Eastern Avenue. Agenda item 192-23, a resolution adopting a CDBG CV agreement for $42,000 to the Greater Joliet YMCA. Agenda item 193-23, a resolution adopting the CDGB CV agreement for $88,000 to the Greater Joliet YMCA. Agenda item 194-23, a resolution adopting program year 2021 agreement for $25,000 to the Greater Joliet YMCA. Agenda item 195-23, a resolution authorizing the acquisition of right-of-way for the Olympic Boulevard Improvement Project. Agenda item 196-23, a resolution authorizing the execution of an extension of the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Joliet and the Illinois Department of Corrections and the Illinois Department of Central Management Service regarding the Joliet Correctional Center. That's for that's a new lease agreement for the prison. 197-23, a resolution approving a transit shelter agreement between the City of Joliet and Pace Bus Service, and this is for a bus shelter at the Joliet Medical Center. Agenda item 198-23, a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a lease agreement with the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police Labor Council located at 30 North Bluff Street, Joliet, Illinois. And with that concludes my comments.
Next is public comments? Is there anyone that would like to speak under public comments this evening? Seeing none, next is, we have a request for closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition or conveyance pending or threatened litigation, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
So moved.
Second.
Been motion seconded. Councilman Clement?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Guerrero?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Motion carried.